The Monster Below, Nightfall by Greenback, read by Deathlight. Chapter 2, From the Gates of Paradise. There's an old saying from Equestria's darker, less civilized past. To torture someone, take them to paradise, let them enter through its gates, then drag them away to the darkest depths of Tartarus so they will know the agony of what they almost had. Like so many others, I disregarded this saying as nonsense, philosophical babble from the past. Only now do I recognize how true it is. 2 years ago, I was at the gates of paradise. It hadn't been an easy journey to get there. I'd manipulated so many, almost succumbed to death, and inadvertently given my worst enemy the power to destroy nearly half Manhattan and kill hundreds in the process. I was an outcast and a criminal, but it was on a train heading to Canterlot that Beatbreaker, my only friend, revealed that she had feelings for me despite everything I had put her through. And not only that, but my parents, whom I feared would disown me, had revealed that they too still loved me. For a few hours, I had my family and my paradise. But it wasn't to last. Near the end of my journey, I glanced out the window and spotted Canterlot. I had never been to the capital of Equestria before and should have been excited. Instead, I felt the fear of knowing that something horrible is coming, but there is nothing you can do to escape. The train pulled into Canterlot Station an hour later, and my heart was pounding. I stayed in the royal cart with Beatbreaker and my parents as long as I could, knowing that the moment I feared would come at any second. Shortly after the last pony exited the train, 4 Princess Luna's royal guards came for me. A royal carriage was waiting for us as we left the train. Nobody spoke as we got in and rode away. Beatbreaker and my parents stayed close to me, as if they were shields that could protect me from what was coming. I tried to focus on them, to let their presence give me strength as we rode into the mountains behind Canterlot. Then we stopped. We had arrived. My shaking legs could barely keep me upright as I got out of the carriage. We were before a raised drawbridge, and several ponies chained together, watched over by several guards, the leader of whom looked towards me, and a pile of chains at his hooves. I embraced my parents, clutching them as hard as I could, and like any parent about to send their child to prison, they were barely able to keep themselves from having nervous breakdown. Mom was a blubbering wreck. Dad tried to assure me that it'd be over before I knew it, but I could tell he didn't believe it. Both of them promised they'd visit as often as they could and write to me every week. When I got out, they said they'd take me away from this awful place as fast as they could. It wasn't easy to let them go, but letting go of Beatbreaker was worse. She was the first true friend I ever had. And when we were starting to heal our relationship, forces beyond our control were tearing us apart. She tried to find words of encouragement, something to give me strength, but nothing came. And I, even with my severed tongue, was equally silent. I didn't want my loved ones to leave, but I gathered them once more and told them to go. They said nothing more, but I think they knew what I was doing. It was better that the last sight of me was as a free pony rather than being dragged away in chains. Getting back into the carriage, they looked out the window as it rolled away, our gazes focusing on each other as long as they could manage. And then the carriage turned the corner and was gone. I was numb, which made things a little easier to bear as the guards surrounded me. I was marched to the others, and a steel collar was locked around my neck and chained to the others before me. The drawbridge creaked as it was lowered, revealing towering stone gates on the other side. As we were marched across, the gates swung open, revealing a dark void beyond. One pony, crying his eyes out, broke down and screamed, begging the guards not to take him inside. A poke from a guard's spear forced him onwards. As we reached the gates, I looked to the sky above, now yellow and pink from the glow of the setting sun. I wanted the sky to be the last thing I saw as I was taken from paradise. We marched into the abyss, the gates groaning as they slammed shut. The march into the mountain's dark depths was a blur. I remember little being processed, having my few belongings being taken from me, of being scanned several times to ensure I didn't have any charms or aids to help in an escape, and being forced to change into an orange jumpsuit. I could barely focus as a set of shackles and chains were locked around my legs, and then we were marched into a room where a prison's warden awaited us, where he told us about our new home. We were going to be staying in one of Equestria's most secure prisons, built to house the most nefarious and the worst of the worst. Good behavior, following commands, and staying out of trouble would be rewarded. Getting into fights, disobeying commands, or disrupting the order of things would lead to loss of privilege. And if the charge was serious, they'd be sent to the prison's more secure levels. With the briefing over, my fellow prisoners and I were taken via several elevators deep into the mountain, until we emerged into a tall, cylindrical chamber, the bottom of which was so far I couldn't see it. Each floor had several gates, while most of the other prisoners continued downward into the deeper levels. I was taken to one of those on the topmost floor. Once inside, I was led through a labyrinth of tunnels and halls, no doubt built to disorient inmates who might try to run for it. We came to a barren door. It was swung open, revealing an empty cell. I was pushed inside, the door was locked tight, and the guards left. I looked it over. There was an alcove in the wall for sleeping, a hole for toiletry purposes, and nothing else. This is going to be my home for the next 2 years. The first few days of my incarceration were the hardest. There were no windows, only lights from torches and candles set within the halls, casting the dungeons in permanent twilight. With no indication of day or night, I was relying on the guards hitting gongs to know it was time to sleep and wake up. Every day started with a breakfast of the most tasteless food imaginable, followed by several hours of work. We were not only prisoners of this place, but we were also its janitors as well, as we were all forced to clean the halls, cells, and common areas. Following this was lunch, then reading from the library, dinner, and then cells until the next day, when it would start all over again. I was a nervous wreck, but the terror slowly faded as I followed the same routine, day in and day out. According to the rumors from my fellow prisoners, we were the lucky ones. Those below us suffered even more strict routines, and those at the bottom being forced to live in complete darkness. Inquiries with the guards didn't reveal if the rumors were true, but I learned that Mingus Bluehorn, my most hated rival, and the monster who had nearly destroyed Manhattan, was being stored here as well, and he was one of those in the prison's deepest level. Not that I cared, as long as he was down there and I was up at the top level, it was fine with me. I got through my first week with no problems. Well, almost. With little light reaching into my cell, sleeping in that cramped alcove brought back memories of the tunnels beneath Satalanka, and the thing that had nearly caught me. Night after night, I was haunted by nightmares of the thing coming after me. I would inevitably wake up with a scream. Those night terrors eventually convinced the warden to allow a small glowing crystal to be placed in my cell, which acted as a nightlight. The nightmares didn't go away entirely, but it helped. Even then, I was still trapped within the earth. Weeks passed, and I got a letter from my parents saying that they had to go back to Sri to run their gardening shop. I got a letter from Beatbreaker as well, cautioning me that her work with Medicomp was keeping her busy, and she wasn't sure if she'd be able to come and visit me. Months passed. Staying true to their word, my parents sent me lots of letters, telling me each and every little thing that was happening within the world beyond the mountain. Beatbreaker was only able to send a few. Medicomp, she told me, wasn't doing so well. She was having to put in mandatory overtime every week trying to help rebuild the company's public image. But she assured me that she would try to write what she could, to hang in there and to be strong. Months passed and the fear of prison faded away. Like so many others before me, I had adjusted to my new life. But now that I had adjusted, I was stuck in a state of tedium. I was no longer at the beginning of my sentence, and the end was still far off. But worse was knowing that I was losing time. So many other ponies were living their lives and fulfilling their dreams. They were starting families, having picnics, going out to the movies, and spending time with their loved ones while I was locked away. Little fears began to gnaw at me. Regrets and what-ifs became a constant companion. I should have been more clever when I was trying to become an alicorn. If I had done so, I'd be free and probably famous and powerful beyond measure. I would have had everything I ever wanted. But I quickly learned that thinking like that would lead to madness. I tried to stop, but it was so hard not to daydream about what could have been. And I was one of the luckiest ones here. I had a life waiting for me on the outside. So many others didn't have that. They would spend the rest of their lives down here, never seeing the sun and the moon, never to know freedom again or have their dreams come true. For prison is the place where dreams come to die. My only dream was to be with Beatbreaker and my parents once again. All I had to do for that dream to come true was to endure and wait it out. During those long days and nights, I had to find a way to keep myself motivated. Knowing that I would see my family and Beatbreaker again would have sufficed. But as I lay in my bunk one night, I realized there was another tactic that I could use to motivate myself. Not only to make it through the 2 years, but also prepare myself for life beyond the bars. All I had to do was keep asking myself one question. What would Celestia do? Celestia, my idol and inspiration, had been the reason I had become an alicorn. That had failed, but she could still inspire me. Whenever I faced a hardship that seemed insurmountable or an obstacle seeming too great to overcome, all I had to do was ask myself, what would she do? And what would Celestia do in my position? She would make the most of the situation. She would do what she could to make life better, not only for herself, but those around her. For the remainder of my time behind bars, I would take inspiration from Celestia and work to become greater than I had been going into this dark place. A year passed and I finally earned enough merits to gain privilege to bring books into my cell. A few months later, and I was allowed to have the scroll that Princess Celestia wrote me, along with little Celestia. Many a night passed with me drifting off under her watchful gaze. And whenever despair threatened to overcome me, she reminded me to hang in there and take everything one day at a time. Spring came, then summer, and finally winter. Those of us fortunate enough to still have family and friends received gifts. Mom and Dad sent me photos of Sri and all the other areas of Equestria they had traveled during a long vacation. There are pictures of the Crystal Empire, Rainbow Falls, Saudi Arabia, and events like the Passage of the Breezies, the Annual Pie Festival in Appaloosa, and a yearly air show by the Wonderbolts in Cloudsdale. One photo even had them posing with Captain Rainbow Dash, and a message from her wishing me the best of luck. A bit odd, considering that she helped turn me to Stone Manhattan. But my parents had no doubt hoped that a celebrity endorsement would give me encouragement. Every photo had notes on the back and the reassurance that one day we'd all see these places together. I mounted these photos on the walls, creating a mosaic of Equestria, reminding me what was waiting for me after the sentence was done. But what really got my hopes up was when I finally got a letter from Beatbreaker. She apologized for not having written in so long, but she had been all over Equestria on a publicity tour for Metacomp. She still couldn't see me, but promised that she was counting down the days until I was free. I kept that letter with the one that Celestia had written me. Both lifted my spirits in the days to come. I reached the halfway point of my imprisonment, and it was getting easier to bear. I could have given in to the daydreams of everything that I was going to do once I got out, but instead kept focused on my daily chores, tasks and classes, and trying not to gag on the tasteless food. Every morning, I asked myself how I could make this day better for someone I met. I would offer a smile or an encouraging nod when it was needed. When someone was on the verge of breaking down into tears, I would go to them or help them with their chores. Not everyone appreciated my gestures. Some resented me, and few attacked me, but such fights were rare. No one dared to risk being sent down a level and having their sentence extended. The days counted down. I mentally kept track until I had a month to go. Then 3, then 2, and finally, I reached my final day as a prisoner. And now, here I am. I'm lying in my alcove, awake from another night terror. It's taken me almost an hour to finally calm down, but I'm now regretting having tried to sleep at all. It only took me a few minutes to pack up all my things, and I decided to try and sleep, rather than slowly wait for midnight to come around. Still, now that the nightmare is gone, I'm getting excited again. I've waited almost 2 years for this moment. By this time tomorrow, the shackles and chains will be gone. I'll have my life back, and the Alcorn nightmare will finally be over. Well, it'll be over for me at least. I may be getting out, but Mangus isn't. I wonder what he's doing now. Is he sitting in the darkness, lost in nightmares like my own? Is he raging as Luna for the sentence she's given him? Or is he sobbing, wishing that he had another chance to prove himself? I don't know. 2 years in this place would break anyone. And as my dad would say, it's only when you're broken when you can finally rebuild yourself as something better. Maybe I should ask if I could see him, to say goodbye perhaps. Celestia would probably wish him well, and hope that he could one day find peace. For the longest time, he was my worst enemy, but now I don't feel anything towards him. No anger, hate, or even mockery at his sentence. He, on the other hoof, would never listen to my sympathy. He'd rage and roar, and possibly even try to hurt me. I won't see Mangus. I'll spare him from the rage of seeing his worst enemy being freed. Something he'll never experience again. There's a sound coming down the hall outside my door. Hoof steps. Getting out of the alcove, I put little Celestia into my bag and stand at attention as the warden and 2 guards come to the door. Seeing that I'm already awake, the warden pulls out a scroll. Silver Speak, by the order of the princesses, you were sentenced to 2 years in the Camelot dungeons. You have been a model prisoner during these 2 years. And it is my pleasure to announce that as of now, January 1st, you have completed your sentence. A guard unlocks the door. You're free to go. I can't grab my bag fast enough. I'm flanked as we leave the cell and head to the main rotunda. From here we take the elevators up to the room where I was processed so long ago. I could barely resist wanting to jump up and down as I was allowed to remove this accursed jumpsuit, and I almost throw it away in disgust. The last of my belongings came next, along with my tie, which I put on and straightened. I came into this place a prisoner, but I will leave with my dignity. I'm escorted to the main gates, and I don't bother holding back my grin as they slowly open, revealing the lower drawbridge and the road beyond. As the guards step aside, I walk into the cold, crisp air of the night. Closing my eyes, I take a deep breath of fresh air. It's like inhaling candy. A breeze blows, beckoning me on. I follow it across the bridge. I walk at first, then I trot, and then I canter. And finally, I run. At long last, I'm free.